Welcome to the Law Offices of Chris M. Ingram's Immigration News Roundup podcast, covering the events of the past week. We would like to thank the staff at the Law Offices of Chris M. Ingram, who have worked very hard in researching and preparing the material for this deep dive from a wide variety of news sources from both sides of the aisle so that you get a balanced view. Our coverage is designed to be nonpartisan. Okay, let's unpack this. This past week has been an absolute whirlwind in the world of U.S. immigration. We've seen some truly significant shifts and, well, the continuing tensions that really define this whole issue. We're going to take a deep dive into these often quite contradictory developments for you today. Our research, which our legal team meticulously compiled, it covers everything from surprising policy reversals, things that caught even White House insiders off guard, TATO, high-stakes court battles testing the very limits of executive power, and even brand new sort of alarming social media requirements for visa applicants.
Indeed, what's truly fascinating here is just how rapidly the narrative is evolving, often in really unexpected directions. Our attorneys have given us this comprehensive and I think nuanced look at how these deep-seated economic pressures, shrewd political maneuvering, and these relentless legal challenges are all converging. They're dramatically reshaping the immigration landscape right now. We'll explore not only the immediate impacts these shifts are having, on communities across the country, but also their broader long-term implications for the nation's identity, its economy, and importantly, the legal framework. It's a dynamic space, definitely turbulent at times.
So our mission for you today is really to cut through all the noise, to highlight the most important nuggets of knowledge from our team's research. We want to help you understand what's really going on behind the headlines, provide context, provide insight that goes beyond just the surface level reporting, so you can walk away feeling truly well-informed. Right, let's kick things off with one of the week's most unexpected developments. Here's where it gets really interesting. The week just ignited with this truly surprising announcement about ICE raids. President Trump announced a sudden and pretty significant pause on enforcement actions, specifically targeting agricultural, hospitality, and restaurant workers. This was widely reported June 13th, 2025. And our researchers confirmed it sent immediate shockwaves through industries that are, well, incredibly reliant on migrant labor, both documented and undocumented. It was a pivot few saw coming, right, given the administration's established hardline stance.
Absolutely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this isn't just some slight adjustment, is it? This pivot suggests significant cracks in what has been a pretty steadfastly hardline deportation stance from the Trump administration. It's likely, almost certainly, a direct consequence of mounting and, frankly, undeniable economic pressures. Our legal team highlighted that even as early as June 12, 2025, Trump himself had sort of hinted at changes to protect farmers. And that promise materialized with, well, astonishing speed the very next day. So the decision to scale back operations in these really crucial sectors was formalized on June 13th. Our attorneys got hold of internal communications and email to ICE officials, no less explicitly instructing them to deprioritize enforcement in these areas. And crucially, to spare industries critical to rural economies. This directive specifically ordered ICE to, refrain from sweeps at workplaces like farms, meatpacking plants. What's remarkable is how much this move reportedly caught many White House insiders completely off guard. It just underscores how unexpected it was within the administration's broader, usually very aggressive immigration agenda. Our team also noted, the Washington Post reported on June 16th, that this specific order was briefly rescinded, just for a moment, and quickly reinstated. It highlights this kind of internal push and pull, a fluid, maybe internally conflicted nature to these high-level policy shifts. This isn't just a policy change. It's a moment where you can see that internal tension playing out. And the background of this shift is so crucial for understanding the rationale, isn't it? Our attorneys reminded us that a cornerstone, a major pillar of Trump's 2024 campaign was the promise of the largest mass deportation program in American history. That exact phrase. Yet the very counties that overwhelmingly supported him in 2024, many of them deeply, deeply farm-dependent, they rely heavily, often indispensably, on undocumented workers for their economic survival. That created a profound dilemma for the administration. Our legal team pointed out that the Washington Post explicitly reported that these agricultural counties, where like 25% or more of earnings come directly from farming, they face dire economic peril. Severe labor shortages if deportations continued at that pace. Just imagine the impact on crop harvest, the food supply chain, local businesses in those areas. It's huge. This created a profound tension for Trump. How do you balance his base's fervent anti-immigration sentiment with the practical, immediate economic realities facing a key part of his political coalition? This mounting pressure from Republican lawmakers, influential industry leaders in these agricultural counties, it seems to have been the primary catalyst for this unexpected policy adjustment. It's really a classic example of economic necessity, just bumping right up against political ideology. Which leads to that important question: how does this dramatic pivot align with his core campaign promises? Our team pointed to Trump's social media post on June 12th. This was just hours after he signaled protections for farm workers, and he emphatically stated, "I campaigned on and received a historic mandate for the largest mass deportation program in American history." You know, this isn't just, a political tightrope walk. It really exposes a fundamental clash, a clash between ideological purity and economic pragmatism that increasingly defines modern conservative politics on immigration. The question isn't just if Trump can balance these two opposing forces, but maybe whether this economic vulnerability will ultimately force a broader reevaluation. A reevaluation of immigration's indispensable role in American industry, a critical debate that often gets sidelined by the rhetoric, doesn't it?
So, okay, for the individuals, the communities directly affected by this pause, what does this all truly mean on the ground?
Well, for immigrants themselves, specifically the undocumented workers in agriculture and hospitality, it offers a kind of temporary relief. Fragile, maybe, but relief from the immediate threat of workplace raids. However, advocates, as our researchers noted, they remain deeply skeptical, and probably rightfully so. Maria Lopez of the Immigrant Defense Network, for example, CNN reported this on June 14th. She starkly called it a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. Well, her concern, and it's shared by many others, is that this is primarily a strategic political maneuver, designed to appease specific, economically powerful industries, rather than a genuine lasting shift in policy or, frankly, a recognition of the humanity of these workers. She expressed fear that Trump will simply continue to target immigrant communities elsewhere, perhaps even more intensely. It suggests the broader threat to immigrant families, to their livelihoods, it very much remains. It's a moment of, let's say, precarious calm, not real safety. And for policymakers, this move dramatically exposes these significant fissures within the Republican Party. It's quite visible. On one side, you have rural lawmakers. They're driven by the immediate economic survival of their constituents. They're pushing for pragmatic, economically driven solutions to protect their local industries from collapse. They're often less concerned with the immigration status itself, more with just having a workforce. Then on the other side, you have the hardliners in the party. They continue to demand unwavering, aggressive enforcement of immigration laws, prioritizing ideology over economic considerations. This internal conflict, it reflects that ongoing fundamental challenge for the Republican Party in navigating a comprehensive, coherent immigration policy. For communities, there's this clear split in the impact. Rural economies, particularly those reliant on agriculture, they might see some stabilization because of this labor reprieve, maybe averting immediate crises. However, urban immigrant communities, as our team highlighted, they remain acutely vulnerable. And that's precisely because ICE's focus is reportedly shifting to these areas, turning up the heat where the economic pressure isn't quite as direct or visible. Our researchers noted the Financial Times warning on June 22nd that Trump's broader immigration policies, even beyond this specific pause, could leave deeper scars on the overall U.S. economy than even his tariffs did. They specifically predicted widespread labor shortages across various sectors, not just agriculture, reduced economic growth, a chilling effect on investment due to the unpredictability of labor supply. Looking at the public and media perspectives, CNN's Jake Tapper observed on June 13th, he said, "This is a classic Trump move, promise one thing to his base, then pivot to appease industry." He further questioned how long this pause would genuinely last, reflecting that widespread media skepticism. An industry leader spokesperson from the National Farmers Union was interviewed on Fox News, also June 13th, and they articulated the very pragmatic plea from their sector, stating, "We're not asking for amnesty, we're asking for time to figure this out." That statement really highlights the industry's desperate need for stability, right? A viable pathway forward for their workforce, rather than a permanent policy change on status. It's about keeping the lights on, keeping food on the table, quite literally.
Okay, so this highly strategic pause on agricultural raids, it brings us to a really stark, almost provocative contrast. Just days after offering that temporary reprieve to certain industries on June 15th, 2025, President Trump issued a new directive commanding ICE to dramatically intensify deportation efforts and focus them squarely on Democratic-run cities, places like Los Angeles, Chicago. It's a shift that immediately raised questions, big questions, about political motivations.
Oh, absolutely. This move definitely raises that important question about the overt politicization of immigration enforcement. It seems pretty clear. According to our legal team, critics didn't waste any time. They immediately called this a blatant political maneuver, designed not just for enforcement maybe, but as a form of retribution. And widespread protests erupted almost immediately in response. The directive, it came via a White House order, right after those massive protests against ICE raids in Los Angeles on June 14th. That's where police reportedly used tear gas, other crowd control munitions against demonstrators. AP News, cited by our team, reported Trump's focus on these democratic cities was explicitly presented as a direct response to these demonstrations, which he claimed interfered with federal enforcement efforts.
Feeling lost in a maze of visa types and paperwork? Don't know where to turn? We've got your back. With clear answers and real help, we'll guide you every step of the way. Let's navigate it together. Your journey starts today.
Hello, you must be Clara. Welcome to the law office of Chris M. Ingram.
Finally, I found a law firm that will help me achieve my American dream.
At this law firm, you are important to us. That's why we will be with you every step of the way. So join us at the office of Chris M. Ingram.
The week before had already seen escalating tensions, including those really striking ICE arrests carried out in New York City immigration courtrooms, where masked federal agents reportedly detained immigrants during what should have been routine legal hearings. That further eroded trust, raised alarm among legal advocates who saw it as, well, an intimidation tactic. This wasn't just about arrests. It felt like sending a message. And the immediate impact on communities was palpable. It was immediate. On June 16th, Jose Abel Garcia, he's a Guatemalan immigrant in Los Angeles, he conveyed that persistent fear in his community. He told AP News, "This doesn't change much. We're still living in fear." Oh. That same day, the outcry spread beyond LA to Chicago. Hundreds of demonstrators gathered outside an immigration court holding signs, "Stop the raids." It underscored this unified grassroots cry against the intensified enforcement. Our team's research also indicated, NBC News reported June 20th, that Trump's intensified focus on democratic cities was actually losing political ground. Polls showed declining support for his broader immigration agenda. This suggests that while it might energize his base, this particular tactic might be backfiring a bit in terms of broader public opinion, potentially alienating swing voters. Our team's research highlighted that Trump's strategy here reflects a broader pattern, doesn't it? A well-established pattern of targeting sanctuary cities, a tactic he used frequently, refined during his first term. The New York Times, referenced by our researchers, noted this move aligned squarely with Trump's consistent campaign promise: punish cities and states that resist federal immigration policies. Now, for those maybe unfamiliar, sanctuary city usually refers to places that adopt policies limiting their cooperation with federal immigration authorities. They aim to make immigrant residents feel safer, reporting crimes, accessing public services without fear of deportation. This approach inevitably escalates tensions with state leaders. Most prominently, California Governor Gavin Newsom. He's publicly vowed to protect California's immigrant communities, setting the stage for ongoing high-profile fights between federal and state authorities, playing out in the courts and in the public square.
So, facing this intensified focus on urban areas, how are policymakers on the ground responding, especially at the state and local levels?
Well, Democratic mayors and governors, as our researchers found, they're not backing down. If anything, they're doubling down on resistance efforts. Governor Newsom, for instance, has publicly, unequivocally, vowed to protect California's immigrants, signaling a continued legal and political battle with the federal administration. And this isn't just talk. It often translates into direct legal challenges, allocating state resources to defend immigrant communities. Our legal team also found that CBS News reported on June 19th that a federal judge issued a really significant ruling, stating definitively that the Trump administration cannot force states to cooperate with ICE by withholding crucial transportation funding. Now, that ruling represents a notable legal win for sanctuary policies. It provides a vital legal bulwark for states seeking to limit their involvement in federal immigration enforcement. It reinforces their sovereign right, really, to set their own policies regarding local law enforcement. The perspectives on this targeting into democratic cities are, well, predictably, sharply divided. It reflects that deep partisan chasm in the country. Trump's borders are, Tom Homan, back in an April 28, 2025 White House briefing, he stated it quite bluntly: "We're going where the resistance is strongest. Democratic cities can't hide lawbreakers forever." That clearly frames the move as punitive, doesn't it? Against non-compliant jurisdictions, signaling a federal willingness to essentially go to war with states and cities. ABC's George Stephanopoulos on June 16th, he characterized it as a dangerous escalation. Targeting cities for their politics sets a chilling precedent, highlighting grave concerns about political weaponization of federal enforcement and what that could mean for the balance of power down the road. In stark contrast, you had Fox News' Laura Ingraham on June 15th arguing Trump's finally hitting back at sanctuary cities that flight federal law. It's about time. framing the actions as a necessary assertion of federal authority, a long overdue response to jurisdictions she sees as undermining national law. And then from the raw, on-the-ground community perspective, Juanita Morales of Union del Barrio, a community organizer, she told NBC Nightly News on June 16th, "We're organizing to protect our neighbors," demonstrating those powerful, resilient grassroots efforts to counter the increased enforcement and provide support where government agencies are seen to be failing.
Right. As all these rapid-fire policy shifts unfold and intensify, the courts are also heavily involved, maybe overwhelmingly involved. This past week alone saw critical federal and appellate court decisions that directly challenged or in some cases upheld the Trump administration's aggressive immigration policies. It's a legal arena playing out in real time, isn't it?
It really is. What's truly fascinating here is this ongoing legal tug-of-war, almost like a high-stakes constitutional chess match, and how the judiciary is grappling with what many see as an unprecedented expansion of executive authority. Our attorneys found several key rulings this week that shed crucial light on this whole dynamic. Okay, first, let's look at that highly contentious case concerning Venezuelan deportations and due process. On June 10th, a U.S. appeals court, specifically a panel of judges, all appointed by Trump, paused a lower judge's order. Now, this initial order would have required the Trump administration to allow 140 Venezuelans who had already been deported to El Salvador to challenge their expulsions in court. Our legal team's info from the New York Times highlights the deeply concerning nature of these deportations. They were conducted under the rarely invoked 1798 Alien Enemies Act. Now, for some context, this is an archaic wartime law, originally meant for actual armed conflicts with foreign nations. Its specific application in peacetime here is highly unusual, deeply controversial. Furthermore, these migrants weren't just deported, they were sent to El Salvador's notorious CHNV prison, a facility widely condemned by human rights groups for harsh, overcrowded conditions, credible reports of systemic human rights abuses. So, the appeals court's pause, led by judges Kathis, Rao, and Walker, all Trump appointees, effectively gave the administration more time to argue against providing basic due process for these Venezuelans. This move, our attorneys observed, is seen by many legal experts as a direct, profound assault on fundamental legal protections, stripping individuals of their right to a fair hearing. The ACLU, representing these migrants, has already vowed to continue the fight, according to Reuters, cited by our team. ACLU attorney Lee Gellert told MSNBC on June 11th that this judicial pause represents an assault on due process that could set a very dangerous precedent. Second, we saw a significant ruling regarding control of the California National Guard. On June 19th, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals issued a decision allowing President Trump to maintain federal control of the California National Guard in Los Angeles. This ruling rejected Governor Newsom's claim that the federal deployment of the Guard in the state for civil unrest was illegal. Our researchers note NPR reported Trump justified the move by claiming it was necessary to protect federal property amid the ongoing protests in the city. The courts, as our team noted NPR reported, have consistently shown a tendency to defer to presidential power in cases involving national security, protecting federal property, particularly during civil unrest. That deference played a significant role here, highlighting the broad authority the executive branch can wield in such situations. Third, and this has massive implications, came a decision on the termination of parole status. On May 30th, the Supreme Court delivered a monumental decision. Permitted the termination of parole status for over 500,000 people, Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans. This group had been granted a temporary legal pathway under a Biden-era program. Now, parole status, for those unfamiliar, typically allows individuals to enter and remain in the U.S. temporarily, often with work authorization, but without being formally admitted as immigrants. It provides a crucial, albeit temporary, form of legal protection. This Supreme Court decision had immediate sweeping implications. Thousands of beneficiaries directly impacted by June 15th. Our team's information from USA Hello warned on June 18th that parole status for these beneficiaries had, in fact, ended, effectively placing many back into precarious legal situations, stripping them of work authorization, making them immediately vulnerable to deportation. It's a move that just upends lives, creates widespread uncertainty for 500,000 people.
Wow. This convergence of rulings, particularly regarding the Venezuelan deportations and the Supreme Court's decision on parole status, it certainly sounds like a significant, maybe unprecedented expansion of executive power.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it absolutely is. Our legal team highlighted that the Trump administration has been aggressively testing, pushing the limits of executive power throughout its tenure, often treading into areas traditionally protected by judicial oversight or state autonomy. They've gone so far as to invoke rarely used wartime laws, like the 1798 Alien Enemies Act we just discussed. They've also systematically terminated established protections like temporary protected status, or TPS. Now, TPS, for context, is a program that for decades has provided safe haven, work authorization to hundreds of thousands from countries facing armed conflict, natural disasters, other extraordinary conditions making safe return impossible. Systematically terminating these protections, as the administration has done, effectively upends the lives of individuals who've often built lives, families in the U.S. Our researchers pointed out a really striking pattern emerging from the Supreme Court. With 3 Trump-appointed justices now on the bench, the court has ruled in favor of the administration in a remarkable 10 out of 12 immigration cases this term. What's particularly concerning, as noted by NPR and many legal scholars, is that many of these decisions were made via the shadow docket. Now imagine the Supreme Court making significant rulings not after a full public trial, extensive oral arguments, detailed reasoned explanations setting clear precedents, but almost behind closed doors. These are often brief orders, little to no explanation, that still carry an immense legal weight, setting precedents without the usual robust public scrutiny. This raises significant concerns about judicial oversight, transparency, the potential for a less accountable form of legal decision-making. This deference to presidential power in such a high proportion of cases is undeniably reshaping immigration law and the balance of power within the U.S. legal system. The legal landscape is clearly a dynamic, often bewildering battleground. U.S. District Judge James Boasberg had initially ruled June 4th, before the appeals court paused the Venezuelan case. He ruled that the government must facilitate legal challenges for these deportees, emphasizing that fundamental right to due process. But the subsequent appeals court decision directly challenged that principle. CNN's Dana Bash on June 19th observed the broader judicial challenge quite aptly, stating, "The courts are struggling to keep up with Trump's rapid-fire immigration orders. This is a legal minefield." Unquote. That reflects the sheer volume, the novelty, the legal complexity facing the judiciary as they try to navigate these aggressive executive actions. In stark contrast, you had Fox News' Jesse Waters on June 20th commenting, "The Supreme Court's backing Trump here. The left's just mad they can't stop him." Quote. Framing the legal outcomes as a clear political victory for the administration and its supporters, often minimizing the profound legal implications for immigrants and the justice system itself.
So for immigrants, for their families, this constant stream of legal challenges, these shifts, it ultimately means increased uncertainty and, it certainly seems, dramatically reduced legal recourse. Right, shifting gears now to something entirely new and quite controversial, our researchers have reported on a groundbreaking, if not alarming, new policy directly affecting international students. On June 18th, 2025, the State Department resumed processing student visas, but with a brand new, highly controversial requirement. Applicants must now make their social media accounts public for extensive government review. This is a major change in how prospective students are vetted.
There are just too many visas out there, and I don't know which one is right for us. We need to get the right advice.
Communication is everything, and I just need someone who will listen and guide me to the right visa type, and not make promises that they can't deliver.
There are so many documents. I need someone to walk me through each one. I can't afford to make any mistakes.
If I can just find a lawyer who understands my potential, I know America will be an excellent opportunity for me and my family.
Welcome to the law offices of Chris M. Ingram, and we are your immigration lawyers, and we will be with you every step of the way in your immigration journey.
At the law office of Chris M. Ingram, you get a free consultation so we can understand your needs.
We don't make promises we can't keep. Our success rate speaks for itself. Join us and access your step-by-step video guides that answer every visa question.
Their platform is amazing. There are videos that instruct you on everything you have to do. It meant we were in control and we could do it in our own time.
They couldn't have been more helpful. They answered every question that I had, and it was easy to see they were the lawyers for me.
I couldn't believe it with my busy schedule. They always had time to talk to me and put me at ease. That's what I like about them.
So go on our website and get your free consultation now, and your new life is about to begin.
Ask me.
We did it! We did it! We did it!
Oh my God, I got my visa! Yes, I did it!
Yeah, what's truly fascinating here, and indeed concerning, is this unprecedented expansion of government vetting into deeply personal digital lives. This new policy raises significant immediate privacy concerns and understandable fears of discrimination among international applicants just seeking an education. Our team's information from AP News indicates the new State Department policy, effective June 18th, mandates that student visa applicants set their social media accounts to public. The explicit purpose: screening, specifically to identify any signs of hostility towards the U.S. Now, the term hostility itself is quite vague, isn't it? Open to interpretation, raising questions about what specific content or expressions might trigger a rejection. This new directive follows President Trump's earlier travel ban expansions and clearly reflects his administration's persistent focus on national security as the primary overriding lens through which to view all forms of immigration, including those coming for academic purposes. And this policy isn't just a standalone measure, it's part of a broader, more aggressive strategy. It restarts visa processing halted earlier in 2025, but adds this entirely new intrusive layer of scrutiny for international students. Our attorneys noted this social media requirement aligns with a broader trend, specifically a June 16th memo proposing expanding travel bans to an additional 36 countries. This signals an even more comprehensive crackdown on who can enter the U.S., reflecting a desire for tighter control over who is deemed acceptable. Our team's research from Reuters highlights that while the stated aim is deterring potential security threats, there's a significant, widely acknowledged risk that it could inadvertently alienate valuable international talent. This could make the U.S. a less attractive, maybe even daunting destination for students and scholars who historically contribute immensely to American innovation, research, cultural exchange.
So how are key stakeholders reacting, especially universities, to this dramatic expansion of digital vetting?
Well, universities and privacy advocates have strongly, vocally, criticized this policy, viewing it as a direct infringement on academic freedom and fundamental personal privacy. A UCLA dean, for instance, quoted on CNN on June 18th, stated unequivocally, "This chills academic freedom." And this isn't just about privacy, it's about the very nature of academic discourse, isn't it? The concern is that students, fearing their casual online posts or even academic discussions might be misinterpreted as hostility, may self-censor their online activities. This self-censorship could stifle open discourse, intellectual exploration, the free exchange of ideas, qualities traditionally prized in American higher education. The implications of this policy are far-reaching, potentially transformative. For international students, it undoubtedly means increased barriers to studying in the U.S., could lead to a tangible reduction in overall enrollment, a corresponding decline in academic diversity within American institutions. This also has a significant economic impact. International students often pay full tuition, contributing billions to the U.S. economy. Universities, keenly aware of the financial, intellectual contributions of international students, may well lobby aggressively against the policy, try to mitigate its effects. Simultaneously, Congress could face mounting pressure from various advocacy groups, civil liberties organizations, academic associations to regulate or restrict government social media vetting, potentially leading to future legislative battles. Furthermore, this policy has the very real potential to strain U.S. relations with targeted countries, especially if their students feel unfairly singled out or subjected to overly intrusive surveillance. This could, in turn, negatively impact vital cultural exchange programs, diplomatic ties, potentially pushing international collaboration to other nations. When we look at the perspectives around this new policy, they are, as you'd expect, quite divergent, reflecting that broader national debate on security versus liberty. A State Department official, quoted on ABC News June 18th, articulated the administration's stance, saying, "We're ensuring those entering our country align with our values." That suggests a focus on ideological vetting, doesn't it? Ensuring only those deemed ideologically compatible can enter. Conversely, NBC's Andrea Mitchell on June 18th countered, "This feels like a fishing expedition that could unfairly target certain groups," raising significant concerns about potential bias, overreach, the possibility of profiling. On the other hand, Fox News' Martha McCallum, June 19th, took a more hawkish view, arguing, "If you're coming to our country, we have a right to know who you are," emphasizing national security, the government's right to scrutinize those seeking entry. These varied reactions just underscore the deeply contested nature of expanding government surveillance into personal online lives for visa purposes, setting a new precedent for who we allow in and under what conditions.
It's clear that all these rapid-fire shifts, these new policies, they're naturally creating a strong, often visceral public reaction across the country. From everything we've seen this week, it really appears the nation remains profoundly, maybe increasingly, divided on immigration.
Yeah, this certainly raises that important question about how Trump's intensified immigration crackdown is being perceived across different communities. And the data paints a very clear picture of deep polarization. Our team highlighted a Pew Research Center survey conducted June 2nd to 8th, 2025. It revealed a starkly divided public opinion. 47% of respondents disapproved of Trump's immigration policies, while 42% approved. That narrow 5-point margin isn't just a statistic. It profoundly underscores the deep ideological chasm of the country on this issue. Nearly half the population in opposition, the other half in support. The protests we discussed earlier, particularly in Los Angeles on June 14th, involving that highly contentious use of tear gas, and similar demonstrations in Chicago on June 16th, they underscore the growing unrest and direct, often angry, opposition to the administration's tactics. AP News, cited by our researchers, reported these demonstrations were directly sparked by ICE's aggressive tactics, including those controversial courtroom arrests of immigrants, which were seen by many as an unacceptable violation of civil liberties and due process. The Pew survey further illuminated these critical racial and partisan divides within the public stance. Showing just how fractured opinions are along demographic lines, it found, for instance, that a significant 59% of white adults supported using local law enforcement for deportations. In contrast, even among Hispanic Republicans, support for such measures was notably lower, at 55%. This indicates that while there's some crossover, fundamental demographic, partisan differences exist in how these policies are viewed and supported, hinting at different priorities, different experiences. Our team's information from NBC News on June 20th reported that Trump's policies appear to be losing political ground more broadly. His overall approval rating stood at 41%, a notable decrease from earlier highs, suggesting the intensified immigration enforcement, while appealing to a core base, might be alienating a segment of the electorate, particularly moderates, independent voters. USA Today, also cited by our researchers, opined on June 19th that Trump's agenda is facing collapsing support, as these polls reflect growing public unease over both the methods and the consequences of his immigration crackdown.
So when we synthesize all this public reaction, the policy movement, what does this tell us about the broader social and political landscape of the country right now?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it vividly shows how Trump's 2024 campaign, which largely leveraged strong anti-immigrant sentiment to secure what he termed a historic mandate, is now finding its implementation complicated by undeniable economic realities and mounting legal challenges. This has created a complex and at times deeply contradictory policy environment that's directly reflected in the public's polarized reactions. It's a dynamic tension, isn't it, between rhetoric and reality, playing out across the nation. The implications of this public sentiment and policy implementation are truly significant for various groups and for the nation as a whole. For immigrants, the prevailing atmosphere is one of intense fear, uncertainty, which has, conversely, spurred widespread mobilization within communities. Hotlines, legal aid networks are expanding rapidly, acting as crucial lifelines for those navigating heightened enforcement, seeking legal protection. This grassroots organizing is a powerful response to perceived threats. For policymakers, bipartisan pressure is clearly mounting, while Democrats double down on resistance to federal enforcement, advocating for stronger protections. Some Republicans, particularly from economically impacted rural areas, are seeking more pragmatic, maybe even humanitarian, solutions that address labor needs. This creates a challenging political environment for any comprehensive immigration reform, as both sides seem quite entrenched. Lastly, communities themselves are experiencing a deepening of these urban-rural divides. Cities, often led by Democrats, are grappling with intensified enforcement operations, the social fallout that comes with them, while rural areas, particularly agricultural ones, are seeking, and sometimes receiving, exemptions from these very same policies, illustrating a stark contrast in experiences, priorities, vulnerabilities across the nation. It's a mosaic of different realities. The perspectives on this deeply divided public reaction are as varied, as complex, as the groups affected. A Pew analyst on NPR, June 17th, summarized the survey findings with a key insight, noting the public is split, but disapproval is growing as the human cost becomes clear, highlighting an increasing public awareness of the tangible impact of these policies on individuals, families, not just abstract numbers. CNN's John King on June 20th suggested a political calculation, observing, "Trump's playing to his base, but he's alienating moderates who see the economic fallout." highlighting potential long-term electoral consequences. In stark contrast, Fox News' Greg Gutfeld on June 19th offered a different interpretation, countering the left's hysteria over deportations ignores the rule of law. Trump's delivering what voters asked for. End quote. Framing the policies as a direct, legitimate response to voter mandates, a reassertion of national sovereignty, and finally, a Los Angeles demonstrator, powerfully quoted on ABC News June 16th, voiced the raw sentiment on the ground, vowing, "We won't let ICE tear our families apart." Underscoring the deep emotional, social, human stakes involved in these policies that go far beyond political or economic debates.
This deep dive has truly revealed a nation at a critical crossroads regarding immigration, hasn't it? We've seen Trump's abrupt, surprising pause on farm and hospitality raids, a clear illustration of that tension between his hardline rhetoric and the undeniable practical economic realities facing key industries. And in stark contrast, we've also seen his administration pivot to target Democratic cities, escalating what many view as political warfare directly through immigration enforcement.
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is how the courts, including the Supreme Court, are grappling with what many legal experts describe as an unprecedented expansion of executive power. Navigating a complex legal minefield as they attempt to balance presidential authority with fundamental due process rights, and how public sentiment, as our researchers showed with that Pew survey, reflects a deepening, increasingly entrenched divide, where urban protests clash sharply with rural relief. This indicates the nation's communities are reacting to these policies in vastly different, often contradictory ways, depending on their location, their economic ties. This raises an important overarching question for you, the listener, to consider. How will these profound contradictions continue to shape the U.S. identity and its economy in the years to come, particularly as these tensions play out on both the legal and social battlegrounds?
And let's not forget that brand new social media vetting policy. That adds another unprecedented layer of surveillance to the immigration process, raising very serious questions about privacy, fairness, the potential for broad discrimination. Questions that will undoubtedly be debated, challenged for a long time to come.
Indeed. This story is far from over. It is a constantly evolving narrative that consistently tests the nation's core values, its economic resilience, and its very unity, in profound and often unexpected ways. The comprehensive insights provided by attorney Chris Ingram and his dedicated team have been truly invaluable in helping us navigate this complex, rapidly shifting landscape, providing you with the essential context and deeper understanding necessary to grasp what's really happening.
Thank you so much for being with us today for this deep dive. We really hope you gained a lot from this discussion and found it truly insightful. Please leave us a comment if you can. We love hearing from you. Additionally, you can support our channel by sharing it with your friends and family, helping us build this community together. Also, check us out on YouTube for more of our deep dives. We would also like to once again thank attorney Chris Ingram and his dedicated team for their meticulous research and for preparing all the essential material for our presentation today. If you, a friend, or a family member would like a free consultation on your immigration matters, you can visit our website at www.breakthroughusa.com and schedule an appointment directly. We'd love to hear from you and help you if we can. See you next time on the deep dive into U.S. immigration. Bye for now.